John Dramani Mahama has always been consistent about the influence of exogenous factors on our economy, no doubt. And that is why, even when he read the State of the Nation address when he was president first time, he made it abundantly clear that whatever happens in China impacts on us. And it has always been the NDC's politics. Even in 1999, remember there was a time in this country that it was the finance minister who gave us what the price of petrol would be. Yeah. There was a time in this country. I grew up to that situation. Our parents would be by the radio waiting to hear what the finance minister will say is the price of petrol. We witnessed that before. But the point ought to be made clear. President John Dramani Mahama at Harvard University abundantly admitted that COVID, in fact, had impact on global economies. However, in the specific case of Ghana, the 2020 election, brought about a budget deficit of 15%, the highest in the whole of West Africa. And President Mahama then questioned that how come that we had 15% and that it was election spending. Go and read his Harvard speech. So it is not true that President Mahama never, said COVID will have effect. No, but he said in your specific case, you were reckless. You wanted to win an election at all costs and therefore spend beyond your means. And so by 2021, immediately after the election, November, you wanted to introduce e-levy. On the 19th of November 2021, when you read the budget, you introduced e-levy. That was when the problem started. And so by July 1st, 2022, you had to go to the IMF. Though COVID ravaged global economies, you had over 21 billion Ghana cedis that came to you by reason of COVID. You said your revenue projection and loss was 14 billion Ghana cedis. You got 21. And that should have provided you enough buffer. Already, you have the World Bank giving you $630 million. You had your special drawing right of 1 billion. You had another 1 billion from the IMF, all put together 21 billion Ghana cedis. You had this opportunity, glorious opportunity. What did you do? You squandered it. Again, he makes the point about the taxes on petroleum products. President John Dramani Mahama in December 2015 introduced ESLA. ESLA was supposed to have only 5 years. What happened? You came and set up ESLA PLC and decided to use ESLA receivables for loans. Those loans are part of what they call the bonds, are part of the DDEP and all the matters with this. So how do you expect that today, when you have committed this country by reason of DDEP and other financial commitment, go with? That has always been the NDC politics. Look, Minister Setekwe had read the 2015 budget and given an indication that we'll be selling our crude for $85 per barrel. Within 3 months, crude prices fell from $85 to $40. When Minister Setekwe came for the revised budget and raised that issue, Dr. Bawumia downplayed it and said it was the mark of incompetence and reckless management of the economy at that time. And that was when he made his famous statement that how come that global factors moved from, Ivory Coast, Burkina and others and only came to Ghana. So when they then raised the issue about COVID-19, we retorted and said, but you guys never believed that global factors would impact on our economy. That's a fact. So today, if you come here and say, President Mahama and never said a global factors and this, what are we of December 2024? 3 days to the general election. Okay? Diesel sold at 15.8 Ghana cedis in this country. At that time, crude was selling at $70 per barrel. You were selling diesel at 15.80. Why? Because the exchange rate at that time was almost 16-14. That was why, even though crude was 70, you were still selling diesel for 15.80 at that time. With respect, Senior, you were a deputy minister. That should tell you the impact of Forex on general pricing. Because it was $70, but you were selling diesel for 15.80. You were selling petrol for 15.30. Even though crude was 70, because at that time, you could not manage the exchange rate well. Today, at the time when crude was doing $66, the maximum you could get petroleum product was 13 Ghana cedis. What does it tell you? Because of the management of the Ghana cedi. This is something you cannot run away from. These are facts. That is why I'm saying that you can express your opinion on those facts, but you cannot deny the factual. And when I speak, I give you the timeline too. Tuesday, 1st November 2022, diesel sold at 23.49 Ghana cedis. 23.49. 1st November 2022. It was a Tuesday. That was the window for November 2022. The first window. At that time, you sold diesel for 23.49. What was the price of crude at that time? Because the exchange rate at that time was doing what? 17 Ghana cedis. Because remember that we are just going to the IMF on the 1st of July 2022. Less than 4 months down the line, the exchange rate went to 17 cedis. Why? Because we were struggling with getting an IMF staff agreement. And two, there was issue about whether we have enough Forex in the country. And so even though crude price was a bit better, the exchange rate at 17 shot diesel price to 23. These are facts. 1st November 2022. You can go